Welcome to Foundations in Therapeutic Modalities and Integrative Therapies. By the end of this session, you should be able to identify factors affecting the development of integrative therapy and its challenges. You should also be able to describe its strengths and limitations. In this session, we will briefly explore the development of integrative therapy, the challenges and benefits related to these eclectic and integrated approaches. We will be taking a brief look at multimodal therapy, the trans-theoretical model of change, the three-dimensional model of multicultural counseling, Hill's three-stage integrated model, and the common factors model. Eclectic and integrated approaches have evolved from the realization that no single theory has or likely can completely address all of human experiences. So as might be expected, different people are attracted to specific approaches. The availability of numerous training opportunities and readily available treatment manuals have also been factors in the evolution of integrated approaches, along with the desire to produce efficient and effective treatment plans that can match the diversity, culture, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, symptoms, interpersonal skills, abilities, and so on of people that are seeking help through treatment. But it should also be noted that prior to a clinician integrating approaches, they must first be well grounded in a theory with a solid and working understanding of the different approaches considered appropriate for specific treatments. It's important to note that opting to incorporate an eclectic or integrative approach to clinical practice has its challenges and likely makes more demands than the clinician who, for example, chooses a specific theory to work from. So in this, the role of the clinician is more comprehensive, demanding, and challenging as it necessitates expertise in a number of different treatment modalities. So integrative clinicians must also apply careful thought in choosing among different techniques and opting for those that best suit the situation and that will mesh most effectively with the whole of the counseling process. So treatment must therefore also be coherent and it must be congruent. While there are clearly some challenges to integrative therapy, it also has many benefits. Integrative approaches bring flexibility of treatment to the process, allowing the clinician to adapt treatment to the specific clients or their issues. It further increases opportunities for a good fit between the client and treatment. Integrative therapies may also be adapted to meet the needs of clients from diverse backgrounds and cultures, allowing the clinician to potentially work with a very wide scope of clients. Integrative approaches to therapy also offers room for the clinician to adapt standard treatment plans to their own beliefs about human development, as well as pairing approaches to treatment that match their personal style and presentation as a clinician. We will now take a look at a few integrated and eclectic approaches that have been identified in the field. Theoretical eclecticism combines interventions without a guiding theory of change or development. So without a well-rounded logic or intuition that's prevailing, clinicians using a theoretical eclectic approach are at risk for a term that's called syncretism, which is a term that's used to treatment that may be haphazard, that lacks direction, and might be inconsistent and incoherent, and all of which leads to failure in treatment, and not to mention that it may also be confusing for clients. A common factors eclecticism suggests that certain elements of treatment, such as specific interventions, a therapeutic alliance that communicates support, empathy, and unconditional positive regard, rather than a specific theory, are what's responsible for encouraging change and growth in the process of therapy. Two other types of integrated and eclectic approaches that we'll briefly look at are technical eclecticism and theoretical integration. Technical eclecticism combines interventions from different treatment systems without necessarily adopting the beliefs of those theories. So this framework can be thought of as an organized collection of interventions instead of an integration of concepts. The selection of those interventions by the clinician, however, should be empirically supported by research that validates the various strategies as successful for meeting the presenting concerns of the client. A theoretical integration consists of conceptual guidelines for combining several treatment approaches. So treatment is therefore focused on theory rather than being technique driven. So later in this session, we'll take a look at Hill's three-stage integration model, which will provide an example of theoretical integration. Let's now explore some of the key characteristics that are shared by effective, eclectic, and integrated approaches. We know that effective integrated approaches, among other things, should be well founded on the strengths of existing theories. They should coherently combine theories to create a unified entity. It should reflect a principal theory of development and behavior, as well as a philosophy of change, and demonstrate logic, guidelines, and procedures that allow for modifications of the approach to meet the treatment needs of a specific issue or person. Now, some more on the criteria for effective integrative approaches. They also should reflect strategies and interventions that are connected to the foundational theories that facilitate change. The approach should also hold the commonalities of proven effective treatments, such as support, positive regard, empathy, and collaboration. So when we're formulating an integrative treatment system, there are a number of questions a clinician should address when formulating an integrative treatment. The questions to be addressed can include, but are of course not limited to, what treatment approach is likely to be most effective in a specific context? What skills are required for this approach? What backgrounds of people will respond best to this approach? What are the overall goals of treatment? What clinical skills are of particular importance for adopting this approach? How is effectiveness measured, and what or when determines when treatment is completed, and so on. Okay, so next we're going to look briefly at multimodal therapy. Multimodal therapy, or MMT, integrates theories and interventions rather than a self-contained sort of treatment approach system. It is flexible, and it allows for a theoretical foundation of the clinician's choice, and this approach is also enriched by interventions from compatible approaches to treatment and an emphasis on interventions that are supported by research. So the selection of specific treatment strategies is guided through a systematic structure of support for matching the intervention to the client, the problem, and the situation. So next we'll look at the acronym of Basic ID, which represents an assessment model in this approach. As just mentioned, Basic ID is an assessment model that is used to assist MMT clinicians in essentially determining client functioning, and it consists of 7 categories. So B is for behaviors that are observable, whether actions, responses, or habits. A is for affect, or emotions and mood. S is sensations, which is taking the physical and sensory concerns into consideration. I is for images, and they are fantasies, dreams, memories, those sorts of things, as well as the client's view of themselves and their futures. C is for cognition, so those are thoughts, beliefs, values, opinions, self-talk, insights, etc. I is for interpersonal relations, so they are essentially friends, intimate relationships, and our interactions with others. D is for drugs or biology, which is our biological functioning, which includes overall health, nutrition, exercise, and self-care practices. Basic ID offers a rich source of information that can be processed in several ways. Now, the 7 areas we just mentioned can be rated and ranked, helping the client identify the desired changes in each area. And it also allows for analysis that can focus on identifying symptoms connected to each of those areas. Bridging is an MML technique, which is the process of the clinician initially relating to the client through the client's predominant modality in order to build rapport and connection. tracking is a process of using interventions in a sequence that mirrors the client's order preference. Both tracking and bridging are intended to maximize the client's receptivity to the interventions. So next, we'll take a peek at the trans-theoretical model of change. The trans-theoretical model of change, or what's referred to also as TTM in integrative therapy, offers a theory of behavior change that draws from many different theoretical perspectives, hence the word trans-theoretical. TTM is also known as the stage of change model, and it considers the approach to developing theories necessitating both empirical research and clinical practice. So it provides an organized and step-by-step approach to planning and incorporating treatment strategies based on 5 stages of change, which we will explore next. Clients are perceived to go through predictable stages within the process course of treatment. However, while these phases may seem linear, it's more likely to look like a spiral, as relapses and other factors will shift clients to cycle back to another stage. The first stage of change within this 5-stage model is pre-contemplation. Well, clients in this stage see no reason to change, and the situation may also be a case of mandated therapy through, for example, the court system or familial pressures. Stage 2 is contemplation, where the client owns the difficulties but have yet to make a commitment to take the necessary action towards change. At stage 3, which is preparation, the client has decided to change and may have even taken little steps toward that. 4 is action, wherein the client is motivated and committed to changes and energy is clearly exerted toward that. Stage 5 is maintenance. So at this stage, actions are designed to maintain positive successes and avoid relapse. There are hierarchical levels of psychological difficulties that are considered across 5 levels within the trans-theoretical model of change. They are symptoms, situational problems, maladaptive cognitions, current interpersonal conflicts, family or systems conflicts, and intrapersonal conflicts. So within this approach and leveling of presenting problems, it bears mentioning that clinicians working in TTM acknowledge the importance of a healing context and a therapeutic alliance that is built on trust, even though the clinician is viewed as the expert on the process of change and leads the treatment plan. An MMT is generalizable to a wide range of clinical problems. It encourages innovation, and it also supports empirical research. A TTM is touted as probably the best change model within integrative therapies. However, there are others worth noting. The 3-dimensional model of multicultural counseling is similar to TTM, wherein treatment is adapted to multicultural clients through looking at 3 areas. One is the level of acculturation and determining whether it is high or low. The location of problem, is it internal or external, or perhaps both? Intervention needed is the 3rd dimension of either remediation or prevention. So once the client has been characterized by these 3 dimensions, the approach suggests the role of the clinician and the interventions that are most likely to be helpful. Clara Hill's 3-stage integrated model is firmly grounded in the theoretical orientations of people like, but not limited to, Freud, Rogers, Erikson, Skinner, Ellis, and Beck. Early experiences, attachment, and self-esteem are considered as the foundation for personality development, thus they need to be explored and understood to facilitate positive change. So empathic collaboration is also required to support and coach the client on how to improve their situation. So next we'll take a look at the 3 stages as laid out in Hill's approach. Hill's 3 stages consist of exploration, insight and understanding, and actions. So exploration is undertaken via a person-centered approach and positive therapeutic alliance. The clinician explores the client's thoughts, feelings, and actions. 2, insight and understanding marks the stage of a psychoanalytic approach to gain insight into those thoughts, feelings, and actions. Strategies such as interpretation and immediacy can help the client view themselves in fresh ways and make sense of their situation. Action is the stage where the client takes constructive action to learn new skills, as well as evaluate changes in their thoughts, actions, and feelings. And interventions at this stage might include providing feedback, teaching and reinforcing new behaviors, and creating action plans. So also inherent to this model is cultural competence. So integrative therapies necessitate that the clinician is sensitive to the culture of the client, along with being fully aware of their own values in order to not project their own cultural or belief systems onto the client. The common factors model shares a foundation of factors similar to other integrative models that are considered responsible for effective therapeutic outcomes. The similarities, for example, may include common change elements, shared therapeutic components, and universal healing factors. So in this, they're also thought to be a series of client factors that are regularly used in integrative approaches, such as diagnosis, level of resistance, client preferences, and client coping styles. So next we'll examine these factors in a bit more detail. The first shared client factors we will look at is that of diagnosis. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders is the go-to manual for diagnosis and treatment planning by mental health providers. The diagnosis, however, is insufficient for the development of a successful treatment plan. As well, we are cautioned to be careful around the clinical training and qualifications needed to actually deliver a diagnosis and not let the diagnosis itself exclude other factors such as the client's strengths when formulating a plan for treatment. A reactance or level of resistance or research support indicates a high level of resistance from the client equates to a less directive approach from the clinician for successful therapeutic outcomes. Client preferences include matching the client to the therapist based on gender preference, ethnicity, cultural background, or sexual preference. These things can improve outcomes. The client coping style is another key variable involved in treatment planning. So recognizing the client's coping style helps guide treatment strategies that will improve chances of treatment success. So within this planning process, there are thought to be 4 variables that the clinician focuses on: client characteristics, the context for treatment, client-clinician variables, and specific treatment strategies. Integrative therapies have generally been empirically well supported in the research literature. The development and study of these approaches is an area of psychotherapy that continues to grow, and they are also reflective of what many clinicians already do in their practice, in addition to offering a diverse selection of treatment strategies to choose from. Now let's summarize the key highlights of our session. Many clinicians report that their primary theoretical orientation is an integrative or eclectic approach. Integrated approaches are based in theory and aim to work multiple treatment strategies into a unique whole that is more than the sum of its parts. Eclecticism lacks a unifying theory, but it is functional and provides a framework for choosing and applying interventions that are derived from a variety of counseling and psychotherapy modalities. The common factor shared across all theoretical orientations has provided a framework that allows clinicians to create personalized experiences for their clients. We have come to the end of our session on integrative therapies. Thank you for listening.